stands,
one nation, under God,
indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all.
Guns, self-defense, concealed carry. This is the Patriot Defense Podcast. From the war room in Idaho's high desert, here's your host, Todd Echols.
And we are back once again into Saturday afternoon, and we are tucked away in the war room somewhere in the high desert of southern Idaho. And joining me today is Eli.
Yeah.
How you doing, Eli?
I'm good.
It's been quite a while since I've actually had a guest or another person on the podcast with me. So I imagine our listenership is going to go up now because people like it. It's just a lot easier when I have someone else on the podcast and I'm not just doing my crazy rants into the microphone because I'm pissed off about something. That's typically the way those come across, I think.
Yeah. It's always good to have company.
It is. Get that conversation going. So I think winter, we always start off with a little bit of small talk around here. I think winter has hit.
Yeah.
It is cold. It's not horribly cold, but it's rainy. And there's lots of winds, and I gave up and started a fire at my wood stove yesterday.
Oh, really?
I've held out for this long. I held out, and I'm like, I gotta get this fire in there. The wife's gonna leave me, take the kid, which might not be a bad idea. But no, I started a fire because we had some electric heaters around, and they just they weren't doing it. And I'm kind of stingy when it comes to the firewood. I want to make it last as long as I can. So.
Yeah, and that's something I'm learning. So I started probably about a week ago to get practice with it. And then now I am back to being stingy because I realize it goes pretty fast. I'm thinking, all right, it's not quite that cold yet.
It's not.
So I probably should go back to the electric heaters until I really need it.
Do you guys have a furnace or are you just electric heaters and then mainly a wood stove? Is that the goal?
We do have a furnace. Haven't used it yet. Have the electric heaters, room space warmers.
Yes.
So we've been using those. And so been using those in conjunction with the fireplace.
Yeah.
Trying not to use the furnace because it's electric. We don't have gas.
Yes.
And I hear that bill
is huge.
Yeah, so I'm not trying to do that.
So what about this is the gun show. We're talking about heaters and furnaces and stuff. So do you have a fireplace or a wood stove?
Wood stove. I guess, technically.
Is it so it's a freestanding unit?
But it's inside. It's an insert, I guess. Wood stove.
An insert. Okay. Does it heat pretty well?
I think so. Yeah. Especially if you plug it in and it has the blowers. It works.
Sometimes
really well.
This is a little from an expert. I grew up with a wood stove. And so some of the key, if you haven't figured it out already, is get yourself like some of those fans that stand up. And you can actually place a couple of those or one of those kind of in front of it, and use it to draw the heat. And just put it on low and it helps push the heat out even further. Ours has a fan too, and yours probably does too, but those tend to, I think, help quite a bit.
Okay.
So some see, this is little tips and tricks.
Yeah.
I have to do that because we sleep upstairs. And it's hard to get that heat up there. We just, put another blanket on the bed. We'll call it good. The wife doesn't like that.
Yeah.
I'm okay with it being a little cold while I'm sleeping, but she's not about that at all.
Yeah, and see, I like it cold when I sleep. I can't sleep unless I'm cold.
Oh, really? Okay.
But yeah, having a wife, you got to choose your battles. So I'm thinking, turn the fireplace off
sometimes
before bed and let it get cold.
I tell you just sleep on the couch in front of the wood stove. I'm going to go upstairs for like 3 months in the winter. That's my room. That's right. It's my room and that's my master bath. You can have everything else. So, well, I'm glad you made it. So, give me whatever you feel like you want to say. So, I would like to, if you're good with it, I'd like to get you back here because you're kind of part of the team now, right? You're helping me with permit classes and stuff, and you just did your first one the other day, and it seems like everyone that comes out here and helps ends up on the podcast numerous times. And where you live just literally down the road, like 5 minutes, this is going to be perfect for me.
Yeah.
You're going to get so sick of me. Hey, what are you doing? Can you come over and do a podcast? But just let listeners know what's your background. Where'd you come from? What did you do? Tell me as much or as little as you want.
I came from Northern California where I was working for the local sheriff's department there. Came up a couple years ago. Definitely things started to change and terms of where my head was at with priorities when my daughter was on the way.
Oh, sure.
When she was born was 2019 December, and then 2020 happened. And being in law enforcement, I believe we lost, within that year, we had lost like 3 officers, deputies that I had worked with. And it seems like things were getting worse.
Yeah.
And then 2020 dealt with some of the riots where we were. And
that was wild.
Yeah. And it became, I joined law enforcement for the community aspect.
Sure.
And it quickly became apparent that we were actually just working for the politicians.
Well, yeah.
In California, especially, it was they say one thing on TV for the cameras, basically siding with some of the protesters and whatnot.
They say what they need to for the taxpayers. Yeah.
Yeah. And then they turn around. So the way sheriffs and police work, for those who don't know, so police are the city. I was in the county.
Sure.
So the hypocrisy comes in that they were going with the mob and whatnot that was doing the rioting, but they were calling us in for assistance to help the police. So they're doing that behind the scenes and paying us, and we were getting paid. It was, we were well paid, basically overtime pay. And so that aspect about the money, it was good. But I thought, wait, this guy who's encouraging the riots are using taxpayer dollars to get the sheriff's department
to make just for a show, pretty much.
Yeah. So they had us, and just there was the show, and then there was actually what we were protecting. So where I was, there's an arena, and then there's the Capitol.
Right.
And basically we were told our orders were protect those nice things. The Capitol,
Gotcha.
And then this area that was the arena, the Macy's, and a bunch of other nice stores and stuff. Meanwhile,
you protected the government stuff, and then you protected the high tax creating areas. Yeah,
yes.
High taxpayers.
And literally, we could see the smoke, we could see the vandalism. Say, in this instance, there was a deli across the street, and we were told to stand down, don't do anything about it.
Wow.
It's getting ransacked. It's burning.
So where were you at in California? Do you mind if I ask? Is it? You don't have to answer. I don't know.
It's the Capitol's there. So
gotcha. Okay, we'll just go with that. Gotcha. So if I push, you just tell me to back off a little. But that was kind of an eye opener then, huh?
Yeah, it definitely changed what I was doing. I felt like it went from in my head, I told myself I was working for the community. And then when that happened, I realized I'm working for the politicians.
Yeah.
I thought, that deli, that's what I swore to protect.
Yeah.
This arena, which is paid for by tax dollars,
right.
used to funnel money to the friends of the politicians.
Sure.
I'm getting paid to protect that rather than that deli that
guy's the person who owns and is trying to use it to like support his family, and he's actually a part of the. Yeah, no, I get it.
Yeah, and so it was. It was eye opening to realize that, and very as far as morale, it really made me think twice about what I was doing.
Was there a lot of, do you think you worked with a lot of officers that felt the same way as you, that kind of saw it? Or I'm sure there's, in every group, I'm sure there's some of them that just do it. They're told.
Yeah. And that was also eye opening at the time. Being in law enforcement, very, I would say a large portion are conservative. And so I thought even in 2020, when some of this started to happen, I'm joking with partners and stuff, and we're thinking like, yeah, this is ridiculous. We're not doing that. But definitely as I decided to leave and start coming to Idaho, and more time went on as we were dealing with stuff, partners who maybe said something, but then turn around and say, hey, Eli, put your mask on or something along those lines, or do this, do that. Or, they slowly start to give in to certain things, which I thought
pressures, right,
never would have happened. We had one instant in which our department, and this is not to speak ill of my former boss, the sheriff, but
nobody listens to this anyway. Don't worry about it.
But we had, like I said, he spoke out and said, hey, yeah, we're not doing these unconstitutional laws that the governor was doing. And so I thought, okay, cool. See,
that's good. That's good.
Don't have to worry about it. Then somebody called in and took a picture of I think it was like 4 of our deputies inside of a store that we frequented when we were on patrol.
Right.
And they didn't have masks on.
Oh,
right?
no.
That got to them, and I thought, hey, yeah, the sheriff's standing by. He knows this stuff is ridiculous. And it turns out that that deputy did get punished. And that's, too, was kind of like, wow, this is going a little further than I thought it would have.
Right, a little deeper. Runs like, a little deeper.
Yeah. So, and then with the deputies, too, just things started to change to where, like I said, it seemed conservative, but when push came to shove, I was friends with some higher ups like sergeant buddies and whatnot. And even there, hey, yeah, this is ridiculous. But I had to write this guy up for not wearing a mask or for something. This was like, say, in the courthouse or something.
Sure.
Right. And it was little things like, dude, you writing them up, that's going to just keep this going.
Continue
like,
it. Yeah.
Yeah. Like if you know it's ridiculous, you got to stand up. And so more and more people that I thought were of like mine kind of gave in because ultimately it was, hey, I got to pay my mortgage.
Okay. So, yeah. Okay. I get what you're saying. And my brain was kind of going there as well. And you've listened to, let me just start. You listen to other podcasts I've done, right? Okay. Yeah. So you kind of know where my brain is and it's kind of all over the board and you kind of know what I think about and where I lean, right? I think there's bad apples in every group, right? And I'm not saying those guys that are just trying to pay their mortgage. I'm not necessarily calling them bad apples. But people talk about, and I'm not here to diss on law enforcement. We had this discussion the other day, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so if you don't want to just go, Todd, enough. How can I word this without sounding absolutely horrible? Do you think that there's a lot of law enforcement out there? I mean, they're just average Joes like you and me that would just go ahead and do something that might be unconstitutional, like take guns or enforce something that was against just to keep their job.
Yes, at this point, definitely. I think it's been pushed to that point. We talked last week about this, and it's most of law enforcement, local law enforcement, is federally funded in some way.
Yeah.
So when it comes down to it, they're not going to bite the hand that feeds them. And so when it comes down to it, I think a lot of law enforcement ultimately will. And there's a lifestyle that comes with it when you are well paid to do law enforcement as well.
Right. And
that, just human, instinct kind of, you get used to that. And like we were talking before we came on, with having wives and whatnot too, that's, hey, you got a wife, you got kids, they want to be in the good schools.
You got to maintain a certain lifestyle.
You can't go home and say, hey, wife, you can. And that would be the hope. But ultimately, that's a tough one to come home and say, hey, honey, I didn't write someone up and I got demoted.
Yeah, I decided to stand up for the Constitution. They asked me to do something that was unconstitutional. I said no. And either I got demoted or I guess who has to go find a new job?
Yeah. Honey, we got to sell the house.
And so I think that the average citizen, right? I think that, unfortunately, I think that they don't realize. I just don't think the average citizen, I think they believe that, hey, look, these are good old boys. These are this. I grew up with them. They aren't going to do this. But I always say, hey, look, I hope you're right. But I just don't think you are. I think a good portion of them are going to do exactly what they're told. Because if they don't, they're not going to have a job. And I think there's plenty of people that they can reach out and grab and fill that position with, right? You don't do what you're being told to. So, but this guy over here, Fred, he'll come over here and do it for the same. He'll do exactly what we tell him to, and he won't question anything. And I think the average citizen thinks that, especially around here, and I think we've been in this society of, we farm, we hunt, we fish. I mean, good old boy syndrome, right? I mean, it's not going to happen here. It's not going to. I think it will happen here if you're not careful, and if we keep our heads in the sand, and you think that, most of law enforcement, if you believe that they aren't going to possibly come and do this if they were told to, right? I think you're fooling yourselves. I think you're kidding yourselves because I honestly think they will, just like we talked about, because, you get rid of someone's job in this economy right now where they can't make their house payment, they can't feed their wife, their kids, their family. They're going to do whatever they're told.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, I think we have to pay attention to that.
Yeah, because it's ultimately looking beyond the badge and realizing they're human beings. So
yeah,
it is it's not a matter of, oh, they're bad people who are going to do bad things.
Sure,
they're human beings.
Yeah.
You're not going to harvest someone else's crop the way you're going to harvest yours. You know, you're not going to take care of your someone else's kids like you'll take care of yours.
Right.
And so when it comes to law enforcement, it seems like people do forget that. It's, oh, look at the badge, respect it, and therefore they could do no harm. It's a human being getting paid to protect you.
Yeah.
So realize they will not protect you like they would their own family. And that's not a bad thing, but it's on the people to realize that and realize, hey, it's just another human being who I'm outsourcing certain responsibilities to.
Right. And it's interesting because I think the left, and I've talked about it before on the show, and I think the left has, and you know, people that first responders and stuff, sure, everyone demands my respect, right? Everyone does. If first responders, law enforcement, medical, the guy that works at the gas station that sells me my coffee every morning, he deserves respect too, right? He goes to work just like law enforcement goes to a job. That guy goes to a job. To the guy that works at the food plant, making food that we can go and buy at Walmart, right? They all deserve our respect. But I think the left they have this plan. I think they want to, if we all know they do. They want to come in and they want to take our guns. They want to do this. They want to bring in and enforce these unconstitutional laws. And I think over the past, I don't know how many years, but they have put up this thing of ultimate respect of everyone. So you hold these people in high regard and you forget that they're human. And said, well, they're not going to do this. They're not going to come do that. Well, they might. Does that make sense?
Yeah. You think about it in all kinds of things we deal with every day. You think about the fast food industry, for example, right? That kid frying your fries in whatever oil isn't thinking, like I'm part of giving everyone diabetes and I really want to clog arteries, right? No, he's a good kid on his first job probably.
It's so gross.
But who's paying him to do it?
Right.
He has his, excuse me.
You're good.
He goes through his training. This is how you deep fry the fries.
Yeah.
He's not thinking like, is this going to lead to little Billy losing his dad to a stroke in 3 years?
Right.
No, he's doing it.
He's doing his job. He's there to do a job. He's there to get paid. And he goes through his training and it says, you take the fries, you put this many in here, you put them in the grease for this many minutes, you take them out, I didn't mean to step on your...
No, yeah, exactly. And then with law enforcement going through the academy, that's one of the things you kind of learn quickly. I like asking questions.
Sure.
And quickly in the academy, you learn like, this isn't about asking questions. You memorize and do, in which, we go over some constitutional stuff, but ultimately all the laws we're learning, everything we're doing, we aren't really told to think about this. So when you're out there, question if it's constitutional.
Right.
You got this list of codes, and in fact, to a degree, I would say we're told to almost see how we can circumvent. Not in a way maybe as the left might put it, but for example, in California, the vehicle codes, it is a chapter book of chapter books. It is just, and basically we were told this: the more you know, the more reason you have to stop anybody you want.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Gotcha.
It's not, let me constitutionally think about how, do I have a right to do that if the vehicle code book is 100,000 words. And so it's not possible for every civilian to know every code within here. Is it constitutional for me to use their lack of knowledge and access in a way to that vehicle code to stop them?
Like they're obeying the speed limit. They're driving perfectly. They're not erratic, but they got that big crack in their front window.
Basically,
let's pull them over and let's poke a little. Let's see what we can stir. Is that what you're getting at?
Exactly. And you can do that in that way. It's not, you're not told to question whether or not. You're told, hey, this could lead to you finding this, the drugs, something else, in which, that leads to things. And for me, the problem I had with that was, even with that, say we pull people over, it predominantly was a thing of, if someone doesn't have the registration, for example, I went through that in my early years.
Sure.
And luckily most of the cops who stopped me were pretty good. They were good. They understood. I always use a DMV excuse. Okay.
Yeah.
But, But really it was pay for the pizza or pay for registration. It was like, I'm not high on funds, and I'm going to drive this thing until someone takes the car away.
If you starved yourself to death, you don't need the registration.
Yeah. And so something like that, right? As a cop, we weren't told to question that. And again, not to the way the left looks at it and, oh, you're targeting this specific groups or anything.
Right.
But it was interesting to think, hey, we're like, if I stop somebody who clearly has a 91 Toyota and expired registration, and they are basically on their way to work, or even in a lot of cases was, hey, I just got out of jail, just got out of prison.
Sure.
And in the hopeful way, hey, yeah, you made your mistake. Hopefully, you get on the right track, and hey, I can understand you probably can't pay your registration right now.
Right.
But you do want to get to work.
Yeah.
But those are the easy tickets as well.
Yeah.
And so when you're on training, especially, or if you're just trying to, be what we call proactive, those are the people you're just writing tickets to left and right. But it does create the cycle of they couldn't afford the registration.
They're not going to be able to afford the
You're
ticket.
giving them a $250 ticket. Meanwhile, say in the neighborhood I ended up living in, based off of, making a good salary with the sheriff's department, I saw people with registration and all kinds of stuff. I could stop them for the same reason, and they'd actually be able to pay the fine. But we predominantly didn't go in those areas to
look for trouble.
To look for trouble. And again, that's something in the academy and stuff we're not told to really think about, that, like the constitutionality of like making someone who can't pay, giving them the ticket, while others who can pay aren't. And example, probably within a year before I left of that, my pet peeve on the freeway was that carpool lane. In California, they got that carpool lane. Right. It's ridiculous. And they create this law. I learned this after the vehicle stop, where if you have an electric vehicle or a hybrid, you're exempt and you can use a carpool even if you're one person. Who affords a Tesla? First of all, they can afford the money to,
right.
So, but anyway, so I stopped this guy because I was behind him. I tried to give the warning and stuff. It's this Tesla. And I'm like, I flashed my lights. I'm like, get over. You're in the carpool. You're just one person. Eventually get his attention, get him off. And then this is where I learned. He said, oh, I didn't know, officer. I have the sticker on the back and I'm an electric vehicle. And I was just thinking, wait, this guy could afford a $200,000 car, but I can pull over someone with a 91 Toyota and give them the ticket. This guy with the Tesla, he's good to go.
It's all about the money. Yeah. The money runs the world, man.
And that's the little things. Like I said, predominantly it was a conservative group of people that I worked with and can identify with, but we didn't question much about stuff like that, because it's already gone so far and somewhat out of our hands that, you would have people write those tickets, just not thinking about, like, does this make sense for the people that we're supposed to be protecting?
So we're gonna get to guns here in a minute. 'Cause this is a gun show. I know this is great though, because I asked the question. And maybe you may not know, and that's fine. And just and I know you're not in law enforcement here. You never have been in Idaho, but as any observations, what do you think? Do you think law enforcement here is kind of ran the same way to a certain extent as it was where you came from, or is that just strictly a California type of?
Oh no, it's nationwide, because I participated in some things that were more national law enforcement as well.
Okay.
And no, it comes down to the money.
And money, it's here as well.
Yeah, and who's paying? If you look at a lot of troubles in our society right now, comes down to our money. Our tax dollars get funneled up more so to the federal level instead of the state and local level.
Well, sure, yeah.
And so these state and local officials basically go begging to federal, and the federal comes down with okay, but you have to do this. And so with law enforcement, like particularly the unit I left, and it was just kind of the best example of how all local law enforcement is. It predominantly was funded by federal dollars. A lot of grants and stuff, which I was part of writing grants and things like that.
Gotcha.
I look at that differently. When I was in it, I was like, oh yeah, this is so cool. I'm going to write this grant. I'm going to get 50,000. I'm going to get the kudos.
Yeah.
Now I look at it as in, like, wait, that is tax dollars.
Yeah.
I'm begging to get tax dollars. And then it comes with, how you have to report the programs you can run.
Yeah, there's requirements.
And so with like law enforcement, local law enforcement here, just ask when you see their vehicles, who's paying for the gas? Who paid for the vehicle? Mm-hmm. I've seen some local law enforcement here with unmarked vehicles.
Yeah.
And I haven't delved into it, but I would likely say those are kinds of things that are coming from some kind of grant from federal.
Gotcha. Okay.
And in that case, it comes with stipulations. And also the other part of this too is you're inviting a certain type of law enforcement. Look at your local law enforcement. I would say ideally you want people that are in the community, were raised in the community.
Sure.
In the perfect world, it would be that way. The thing I saw with law enforcement, though, you have people, the more toys your local law enforcement has, think about who you're inviting to come join that law enforcement. That's going to be that kid who I always wanted to be a cop all the time.
Right.
I grew up wanting to be that, and this place has a bunch of gadgets. So that means community and protecting the Constitution probably isn't on the top of his list. Top of his list is going to be playing with the toys by joining SWAT team, playing with the toys.
Around here, it's snowmobiles and helicopters and side by sides and
and that's who you're inviting. So especially if your local law enforcement is doing recruiting events outside of your locality, who wants to move to middle of Idaho? For the reason of, I just want to go be a part of that community. Probably not. It's probably they're going to be recruiting guys who took criminal justice in college or whatever reason. And their mind frame is in being law enforcement, not being part of the community.
Gotcha. No, I get you. And one more law enforcement question. Do you guys have to write like so many tickets a week or a month? You always hear that about like, what's your quota?
That's not quite that way. So I was sheriff's department. So yeah, I would say us. I by the time I left, I didn't even know where my ticket book was. The kind of phrase we had was finding drugs and gangs, basically.
Gotcha.
So if we'd stopped a vehicle, if we talked about a ticket, it was the bluff to get into the car and to find the bigger crime. Difference with the sheriff's department and the police is, again, it comes down to money. Who's funding you? So in the city, you're ran by the mayor, the mayor, depending on how it's structured, the mayor, then you have the city manager. But basically, it's one of those two, if not both, who are hiring the chief of police. So he's really just a spokesperson for the most part for those individuals. Mm-hmm. Those individuals being elected officials, they're answering to whoever basically paid to help them get in their position. Except for the city manager, he's put in by the mayor. So ultimately he's answering to the mayor. So you have a mayor. So where I was, I knew people within the city. It was as simple as, you're the mayor, you get a phone call from one of your donors in a certain neighborhood in which they say, hey, I saw the cops sitting around not doing anything. Well, then guess what? Those cops are going to have to start pulling cars over.
Gotcha.
To look busy. So that, to justify what they're doing there. So they want to see them being proactive, and writing tickets, pulling vehicles over.
It's being proactive.
It's the easiest thing you can do.
Gotcha. I was curious. I'm not trying to do a gotcha. I'm just got questions. So let's move on from this. Okay. So you do like Idaho then? This is a good place. Okay.
Oh yeah.
Been here a little while. Okay. So let's ask about my class. You actually helped with first of all, you came with a group of friends.
Yeah.
To one of my classes earlier in the year. And that was a fun afternoon, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. It was a lot of fun.
That was a lot of fun. The guy that actually helped us with that class, we call him Bathroom Paul. The big guy with the beard.
Yeah.
He had to work, or he would be here with us today.
Oh, okay.
But you actually got a hold of me and you said, hey, look, this is my background. I've been in law enforcement, and you wanted to help out.
Yeah.
And so you helped out with your first class, and you did great, by the way. You did great. I got nothing but positive feedback from the people who I talked to. Were you a little nervous?
Yeah, to an extent. Yeah, definitely. It was Yeah, it was a little different. I had done, I was like a lead trainer for honor guard and stuff like that. But like we talked before, right? It's different.
That's law enforcement.
Yeah. You can't yell at somebody, do it again, do it again, do it again. You kind of have to, be a little bit choosier and kind of more inspirational. I found like you're kind of just trying to inspire people. You got to
focus. If they do, and I didn't mean to cut you up, but if they are shooting and there's a couple things they're doing wrong, you got to address those because you want to make them better. But you got to say, but man, your trigger press needs a little, but man, your grip is spot on. Yeah. Right. You always gotta work with it. Right. Yeah. So did you, and I know you were in the middle, I was on the end and James is on the other end. I mean, what question do I want to ask here? So you got it figured out. Did you have any troubles? Did you see something that you didn't say anything about? I mean, I just want to know. I mean, how was that approaching your first student? Did they ask questions that surprised you, or were you like, okay, we're really having to start at the beginning here? Or you tell me.
It was kind of definitely, filling people out in terms of, say someone who's actually like a good shot.
There's a few.
And they're like beginners, and you're just kind of like, oh, wow. So you have to then take it to like something else so they can work on, because you don't want to say, oh, you just started, you're amazing.
Yeah.
You can leave early. So it was that like switching up for me getting into the tactical. So like the main thing I was kind of telling people once their shot kind of was coming into form, it was, hey, okay, now look at your stance, because I would let people know how we were trained, hey, in the gunfight, you're probably not going to stand still unless you want to get shot.
Right.
So kind of just like with sports, your athletic base, hey, now work on getting those feet at least shoulder width apart, and think about that you will probably have to be able to move. So just think about how you're positioning yourself to know like you probably are going to move after you shoot. You're not going to just stand still.
If they continue to train, if they continue to work, to learn, which honestly most of them will not. I'm going to tell you right now. But that athletic stance, that good stance is a good thing to have, because then you can go left, you can go right. You can do what they say, get off the X. You can back up, you can advance on your target, all that stuff.
But and exit is the other thing. Learning law enforcement, it's kind of a surprise when they told us that. But sometimes it's about being able to run.
Oh, yeah.
Get out of there.
And moving. And
sometimes it's not your day to get in the shootout.
Yeah.
Get to cover and figure out how you're going to resolve the situation, but at least get to safety at least.
And you always want to figure out how to break that OODA loop, because the bad guy's, he's focused on you and he knows what he's going to do. When you do something he's not expecting, and it may just be as easy as taking 3 steps to the left.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, don't be where they last saw you. Basically,
exactly. Is there so did any of that stuff, anything that you saw like surprise you? Did it? I mean, like, did someone do something you're like, whoa? Did you rethink it? Like, well, these aren't law enforcement. These are civilians, and some of them are I don't think I had anyone brand new where you were at. If I did, I apologize. I didn't mean for that to happen. I'm pointing at you. Everyone, that's rude. But I mean, did it hit you all of a sudden? You're like, whoa, these are civilians. These are new shooters.
You know what? Surprisingly, it's actually kind of safer than more.
It can be.
Yeah, it can be. In this instance, I didn't come across. I don't think I came across anything, because I think you had, this group at least there was a lack of pride in terms of like ego.
We go over that in class before you got there. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I tell everyone, check your egos at the door.
And because when you're in the class, like even with law enforcement, right, it can feel dangerous because you got that guy who thinks like, I know everything, thinks he could twirl the gun around and stuff. Hey, we've trained on this 1,000 times. You're like, hey, a bullet's still a bullet.
Yeah, exactly.
So I didn't come across that. It seemed like everyone, I think you did a good job in the classroom with getting everyone on that same page.
I tried.
And, this isn't the place to show a bunch of other beginners how great you are.
Yeah. What did you think of my control of when they touched the gun, when they loaded the gun? It's pretty good, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very necessary.
And I'm not trying to like toot my own horn here, but I have to do that because you have people that are used to doing things on the range. They're not used to shooting around other people. having even anyone else there while they're shooting. And so it's like the gun stays there. You do not touch that gun until I tell you to touch that gun.
It would have been good if Alec Baldwin would have learned that lesson. Because it is, despite what some people who might not be familiar with guns, the trigger doesn't pull, the bullet doesn't come out.
Yeah,
that's how it goes.
Yeah.
So yes, keeping your hands off the gun. If your hands off the gun, they can't touch the trigger. So there's no accidents that can happen.
Did you ever have to tell anyone, hey, when you're helping them, hey, finger off the trigger?
Yeah, definitely early on. Yeah,
especially be firm but nice.
Especially those with the revolvers. Their grip was a little different, so they kind of automatically went to the trigger.
Yeah.
And it was just as simple as them know, like, hey, just up, pull that up a little bit. Yeah, we're not shooting yet. And but yeah, each time they're, oh yeah, I'm used to this.
Did you see some of the newer people? I think I kept the newer people on my end, but did you see I was like I was right there with them though.
Yeah.
You have to be.
Oh yeah, and it goes.
It turned out to shoot well though.
Yeah, and it's for safety, but also I think that confidence too. It is at that beginning stage. You want that confirmation that you're doing it right.
Yeah.
So if you were just perfectly fine, you had the safety right, but you're shooting and there's not someone there to be, hey, that was good. You're kind of lost, you could kind of lose some self-confidence by not. So it's good that you were right there with them to kind of assure them, yes, that was good.
Well, you did an absolutely great job, and I hope to get you back. Well, I think we got you scheduled for the next
19th,
the 19th. Yeah. Now, if the class isn't real big, I'll let you know we can talk about this later. But if it is coming into, we're getting into Thanksgiving and Christmas. If the class isn't real big and there's only a handful of people there, I may not need you.
All right.
But I mean, I'm just telling you, unless you just want to come help out of the kindness of your own heart.
I'm down the street. I might just go for a jog and end up here.
If it's literally like 5 people, it's like, the winter months are slow for me.
Yeah.
I still got bills to pay. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And too, I think that goes too with the training too, right?
Yeah.
Like, hey, you being there with those beginners was good. But at the same time, if you do have a class of 5 and you got 3 trainers, it could be a little bit intimidating at that point.
It can be. It just, I guess it depends on who shows up for class.
Yeah.
So, well, that's good. No, you did a great job. And then this summer, I've got, starting in February, I got my women's. In fact, I'll throw that out there just for whoever's listening. You can go on the Facebook page or get a hold of me, but I've got the women's class. I got the Beginners Academy, the Advanced Academy, and even got a men's group. And we start in February. We go from February. They meet twice a month, each of them. We go from February all the way through November. And so if you're interested in that, let me know. We can get you signed up. Links are on the Facebook page. But sometimes, like in these classes, I do okay, let's teach them how to draw the gun, right? And I always need a lot more help. James helped me last time, and I may holler at you to come and give me a hand too as well. It just makes things go a lot smoother, And I don't know if you're here a few times. The ladies in the class, the women always have such a great time in class, and especially if it's just just a straight up women, they high fives, and it's just fun. I learned. I actually miss them when the class gets over in November. I'm like, what am I going to do Thursday nights now? It gets to be a lot of fun. There was every now and then I like to bring up some articles here, and let me find it on my phone here. Of course, I didn't print. I used to print stuff off, and I don't do that anymore because I'm lazy. But there was actually a article that came out. Let's say when. It doesn't say when. Over the last couple days, the article has actually come out on November 4th. It says armed defender, a homeowner, shoots a home invader in the butt. So I'm gonna read you. So I'm gonna read you some of this. I'm just gonna read it, and we'll kind of discuss it a little bit, right? Because we talk about this in the concealed carry class. It's like, do you want to shoot someone that's retreating? Okay, you don't. Once the threat is over and the threat is leaving, you do not shoot them, right? Mm-hmm. That's just the way that should go. And so I read this article like, well, this guy got shot in the butt. What was happening here? What was going on here? So it says, See, this homeowner in Franklin, Ohio, was woken up at 3 a.m. by the sounds of a robber breaking down the back door of his home. In the light of day, in the comfort of our own homes, we know that what that sound meant. Forcing himself awake and out of bed, the homeowner knew at the time that something was wrong. He grabbed his gun before he went out to investigate. The homeowner walked toward the back of his home and surprised a robber. The robber said, "I didn't know you were home." I gotta love it. That's probably not the dumbest thing you've ever heard, especially being in law enforcement. I'm sure you've heard all kinds of crazy excuses, haven't you?
Yeah.
I didn't know you were home. Instead of turning around and leaving, the robber then walked toward the armed homeowner. The homeowner raised his handgun and fired. It says the homeowner is described as an older man who didn't move very quickly. An armed confrontation changes in a fraction of a second. So what has happened is the armed homeowner, raised his gun up to fire, and by the time he pressed that trigger at the robber, the bad guy that was advancing on him, the bad guy, the threat had turned around. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So stuff happened, and people always ask me, "Well, you don't shoot someone in the back." Well, how did you shoot him in the back?
Yeah.
Was he straddling someone, trying to rape them or beat them, and you were stopping that? He was doing that to a family member, because that's okay.
Yeah.
As long as you can explain why you did what you did. You take the shot, and at the last second, the threat turns around and gets shot in the butt. He gets shot in the back, and that happens. As long as you can explain what happened, right?
Yeah.
You don't shoot them as they're running out the front door. You don't purposely. They turn around, they leave, and you're like, "Oh, I'm Hail Mary." You don't do that. So I tell everyone, as long as you are able to explain why you did what you did, right? You're there. You have to be able to articulate that to law enforcement when they show up. So I tell everyone now, you got to come up with what's your line in the sand. What are you going to do? So, this gentleman took his firearm and he went out to clear his house. He went out to see what was going on. Would I do that? I don't know that I would. And I'm not saying everyone has to do what's right for them. A lot of it depends on how your house is set up, right? All our bedrooms are upstairs. So I make sure the kids are okay. The wife gets on the phone. I've got a firearm. Am I going to go clear my house? In my mind, I'm not going to. I'm not going to go downstairs. I'm not going to walk in to that situation, because honestly, I don't have the upper hand at that point. I don't know where anyone is downstairs.
Yeah.
If someone's in my house, does that make sense? I'm not going to go clear my house. I don't care. I'll call law enforcement for that. But I'll definitely yell down the stairs, "Hey, I got a gun. Law enforcement's on the way. Don't come up these stairs." Because at that point, if they do, they're in what I'm considering a fatal funnel, right?
Yeah.
And you don't have to say that. You don't have to yell that, but that's my deal. And if I yell, "Hey, I've got a gun. The police are on their way," and that person still it turns around and continues to come up the stairs toward me, something wrong there.
Yeah.
I told them I had a gun. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that's what I'm going to do. Did this guy make a mistake? Can he go and clear his house? No, he didn't. You can do that, but everyone has to decide what they're going to do and when they're going to do it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And I would say, so most home invasions or burglary attempts, it's a cowardly criminal act.
Yeah.
So I would say that if in this, based off what you read, if the person, I'm here, if they don't immediately retreat, I would say they've crossed the line, in which I would say personally, I would feel it necessary to use force at that point, because they're crossing from cowardly. They're crossing that line into...
They're advancing.
Yeah, they're advancing.
Yeah.
So same if you're saying, like, say they're downstairs. If you say anything and they don't, like, scurry like little mice...
Yeah.
Then you know that they're across the line, whether their intentions were that before, or that in that moment they're making that decision of...
Right.
You have something that they really want, and they're not leaving. And so if that's the case,
I'll give it to them.
And so, there is that. Yeah. If someone, it's a cowardly act, they expect people not to be home typically. And so if they aren't immediately running, then that means they're making that choice to
carry on.
Hey, instead of going to prison for burglary, I'm going for battery or murder. In which case, I would say it would be necessary to use force. And I think something, again, with like the academy, we weren't told to question this, but something being out here in kind of more rural Idaho that I've been pondering is the concept of that the fleeing felon is how we would use it in law enforcement. You know, once they're fleeing, unless they're wanted, there was a list of things like if it's murder, you can't shoot them in the back. It's fleeing felon. But if it was a theft, petty theft, like that's someone you can't, because they haven't shown to be harmful to society in terms of,
they aren't a threat to society.
Now, so coming back to like rural Idaho, it is in that case, a 74-year-old man. The thing I now consider is, well, if they did this once and you're at a disadvantage already, do you wait for them to come back the next day? Or are you at risk? Do you realize, well, someone sees me as vulnerable. And if that robber decided like, hey, this 74-year-old man, I scoped him out. He lives alone. He goes to bed at this time. Do you let that guy flee?
Law enforcement.
Or in this case, the 74-year-old man has a decision to make based off, and this could differ from where you're at. If you're really up a dirt path or something, you got to know, like, this guy's coming back. So he's not going to leave me alone.
Yeah. So in Idaho, I'll tell you what I teach have you taken a permit class in Idaho?
No, I have not.
You have not. Okay. This is what I teach, and this is what the law enforcement, I've used like 3 different law enforcement guys. I'm just going to tell you what I know. Okay. So in Idaho, as soon as it stops being a threat, you're done.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You have to de-escalate, right? You're done at that point. Could they become a threat again? Well, yeah, they could.
Yeah.
But and it just boils down to, and I'm not arguing, this is what I teach. Whatever you do, you have to be able to explain why you did what you did. And I hate to say it, and they say innocent till proven guilty. You're guilty till proven innocent. That's exactly the way that works.
And that's exactly, you bring up a good point, because that was the thing. I've arrested people for how they worded it.
Yeah.
And you're kind of like, oh man, I wish you didn't say the magic words. And so it is important, as we were talking about law enforcement, and now with self-defense, understand that law enforcement is basically, there's elements of a crime. And so before you speak, you should look up what the elements of certain crimes are. Yeah. So I'm not saying lie to anyone. If you've covered those bases. Yeah, help the law enforcement. If you say he wasn't a threat and I shot him, just know like that law enforcement is going to go turn around and, oh, I know what you meant. No, don't use that wording then. If you truly were fearful of your life, then, and for that, like, actually say the word fear. I feared for my life. If there was someone else in your house that you cared for, that you felt was at risk, speak to that.
Yeah.
Don't feel.
You know how many people come and say, well, I shoot to kill. I shot to kill him. Yeah. That's premeditated murder.
Yeah. So don't talk to law enforcement. Give them the information. Realize they're doing a job.
Yeah.
So don't, even if it is somebody local, grew up, whatever it is, speak to them like they're on the job, because they have to officially report based off of what you're telling them.
So let me ask you a question. And like, if I ever ask you anything, it's not a gotcha. I literally want to know like how you feel about this. Maybe it's changed now, but because I think you were right-minded when you were on law enforcement, but I want to ask you about this. So when law enforcement, like if you were in a shooting, they would show up and they would say, don't say anything. Mm-hmm. And they would take you. So what I'm told, they'll take you and they'll put you in not some fancy place. They'll put you in a motel or whatever. You could talk to your wife. They'll bring you food. They'll let you decompress for a day or whatever, right? Till the next day or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But yet I have that right, but they're going to still ask me questions until I say, I'm not talking to you until I speak to my lawyer. That ain't right, because I just went through something just like you went through something. I don't know, man. That is never. Now I know I don't have to talk, but that's never set well with me. So that's the guilty until proven innocent thing, right? They're gonna dig, and I don't. How did you How did you feel about that when you did? I mean, and you don't have you don't have to answer. I'm throwing it out there. I mean, I want you to answer, but you don't have to. I respect it. This show I never meant for this show to go this direction, but yet here we are.
Yeah,
you can pass if you want to pass.
You know what? It brings up kind of an emotional story for me. It wasn't a shooting, but there was a child in the house who died. And he had various amount of health problems to begin with.
Right.
Had a number of brothers and sisters, all were doing fine. Family was first generation, so they didn't speak English really at all. I think we had a teenager in the house who spoke English, but that's what happened. It was their child died in his sleep. He had the I guess tracheotomy, the tubes going through.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and I get there and I'm thinking, at that time I wasn't a parent, but still, it was a neighborhood I grew up in, and I'm thinking like, we're asking. Let me give the background. So basically, fire department showed up, and for whatever.
Are you okay telling us?
Yeah.
Okay, because if you're not, I mean, I want you to still come back and help me.
Yeah, and I'll bring it back to the gun matter, but
okay, you're fine. I just want, if you're not comfortable, don't worry about it.
So fire department, fire EMTs, we call them fire.
Sure.
And for whatever reason, someone flagged it as possibly needing investigation, suspicious circumstances.
Sure.
When we got there, none of them seemed to know who said that, because we get there and based off of that, we got the magic word, suspicious circumstance. Well, so we have to talk to people.
Right.
And me looking at the body's still there in their house, right? And we got to separate the mom and the dad who don't speak English, and
they're terrified at this point.
Yeah, and so it comes back to what you're saying in terms of, I'm thinking their kid just died,
right.
And we're going to question to see if they slip up on something. And for me, what I saw was they got healthy kids, and this kid had health problems, and he's here. He's dead in their house.
They haven't tried to hide it. They haven't tried to do anything. It just,
I'm thinking, what information are we going to get that's worth getting people in their vulnerable state, in which who knows what's going through their mind at that point.
Right.
And so it's similar to what you're saying is, right after someone tries to rob your home or burglarize your home or assault, a family member, and it's, all right, tell me all the details. What?
Did you ever want to just, I know, and I don't know if you did, I'm not asking, did you ever just want to like pull them aside and say, don't talk?
Yeah. I worked in the courthouse as well.
Did you don't talk?
There was a lot of times, in the on trials where sadly I knew some people who went through the courts and doing my job, of course. Yeah. I'm not going to tell them during, but after, I'm like, man, you should
ever talk.
Shut up. Yeah. But yeah, it was like that. Yeah, particularly in that case, I was just thinking like, you guys should,
oh, you're good. Don't worry about it. It happens.
Yeah, don't talk. I felt very, very wrong in doing it. And again, it's not something in the academy you're told to, hey, think about this. Is this conscious? But I thought
they just tell you what to do.
Their kid died, and I'm thinking they didn't run. If they did somehow have involvement in it, I'm just thinking
they're not doing a very good job.
And the benefit of the doubt, like you're saying, it should be benefit of the doubt. I'm going to assume you didn't.
Well, the kid's hooked up to tubes.
Yeah. So I think based off of that and the sanctity of life and death, I'm thinking, okay, they're innocent until proven guilty. We have no reason to think they're guilty. So let them deal with this death before we try to take it any further.
Right.
But like I said, if that's a shooting, whatever it is, yes, it's very, and it is, I don't know all the studies or anything, but it is like right after, an experience like that, if you're involved with a shooting at your home, you're not in the right mind to give specific details and you're not even in a position to know how you feel. And I would say I've been in fights and, physical altercations in law enforcement. I can tell you how I felt after. I was not in a position
very overwhelmed
to just like calm down and give details. I'm thinking like this, that, like, is this okay? Is that okay?
Yeah.
Did I do everything right?
Yep.
I'm not in a position to say, oh, well, he swung with his right hand.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's no, I totally get it. I had when I first started doing Patriot Defense years ago, almost 10 years ago now. One of the first law enforcement officers that would come, they're required to help teach the permit class. He's actually with the FBI now. His name was Ben. He was absolutely fantastic. He worked for the city. He was a detective for the Twin Falls city. And he'll tell you, he's like, and he kind of just, he's like, he was really good. So it depends on who the law enforcement officer is, how they talk about themselves and whatever they say. Ben always said, "No, don't talk. Get an attorney." Yeah. And he wouldn't elaborate. He says, "Don't talk, get an attorney." And he goes, "I need to tell everyone in the class that now, because it's very easy for us to gather information from you if you've been in a shooting, because that doesn't happen to you on a daily basis, if ever. And when we show up, you just want to tell somebody something. You just want to tell somebody what happened." And he goes, "You've got to kind of be restrained."
Yeah, and it is because that humanity aspect of being in law enforcement to kind of understand when law enforcement, for the most part, shows up, they're going by the book kind of thing. So when you speak, they're looking for cues, like I was talking about, elements of a crime.
Yeah.
I show up, I'm just looking. You're saying da 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 da.
You're watching me.
Elements. Right. Did he say fear for life? Did he say imminent threat? Did he say any of those keywords or the lack thereof that meets this element of these crimes? Right. That's all. I'm not really, especially that initial investigation, initial questioning.
Right.
If they're chummy with you, it's just to get the setup. If they are chummy with you, most likely they're not, because they got to get down to what happened so they can report on
nuts
that.
And bolts, right?
And to where, yeah, it's just about hearing the key phrases, and actually we kind of train that way to where you could talk to someone. If they start going off, you train to bring them back, because you're trying to figure out the information that you need to figure out what happened and how you're going to write your report.
Yeah,
which is what it comes down to. You can explain everything about how the guy who robbed you turns out to be your fifth cousin. I don't care. I'm trying to write this report. Yeah. So I'm listening for the elements of the crime, because my report is not going to be an elaborate, fictional tale.
Right.
So whatever you're saying, just understand the cop is just hearing elements.
Did you just murder your fifth cousin, or was it justifiable homicide?
Yeah, I don't care what, all the details. It's just like, oh, he said that. Okay, that's justifiable homicide. Oh, he said that. Oh, he said he hated his cousin.
Oh, now we got two. We got two conflicting things.
Oh wait, now it's not self-defense. So
right,
yeah, that's basically the mode. And again, that's not, oh, the cop's bad, good, but at that point, it's been trained into you. That's all you're listening. And you go to so many calls. Maybe, I don't know what it's like, the call volume is in a smaller town, but you go to so many calls, you're not invested in like hearing the whole story. You literally are just looking for the elements. Is this going to be a hard report to write? Or can you get on track and make this an easy one for me? All right. Gotcha. So if they show up, make it easy on them. I feared for my life, or whatever the circumstances.
Sure. Okay. And like I said, I would just, these honestly are not gotcha, but if I have a law enforcement officer come in and do a podcast where they're currently a law enforcement officer, they're not going to answer. Does that make sense?
Yeah, exactly. I wasn't at liberty to do this either.
This
when
is
I was
kind of like as we get going and I talk to you, I was like, what else can I ask this guy?
And I think that's on the broader scale. That's kind of the issue I had in law enforcement. Is so much is based off the ignorance of the public. I see no reason why the public shouldn't, in some way, whether it's in high school or something, should have way more knowledge of what law enforcement is, because we were operating based off of so much ignorance within the community, which made me uncomfortable.
And I still think it's probably more so even today, because honestly, I think if something happens, I think they're going to try and, as we can tell, they're going to try and use law enforcement to come in and enact and enforce some of this stuff, unfortunately. And, there was, I forget which bill or whatever it passed, but there was all that money from the ATF that was earmarked to come down and actually turn sheriffs' deputies into ATF agents. Yeah. To come in. And so why did they do that, right? That's there. Why did they do that?
And we did that a lot, in my specific department. We had all kinds of joint operations with ATF, FBI,
all that good stuff,
all kinds of stuff, in which and that came with money.
Oh yeah, always. Yeah. Well, this has been the longest podcast I've done in probably 3 months. This is fantastic. I'm just almost hitting an hour, so that's good. I kept getting people commenting and saying, your podcast has been too short. We need them a little longer, Todd. I got 20 minutes in me when it's just me, so this has been fantastic. But I think, unless you got anything you want to add, I think we'll wrap this thing up.
Yeah, sounds good. It's been a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
You don't realize it, but you're going to be back over here again on another one, because when we get the group of guys together, we have a lot of fun, and we don't always talk about super serious things. Sometimes it's just about guns, and we give each other a hard time. And we used to do lots of those, and we used to laugh. And I don't know how far back you've listened, but we used to have some really fun podcasts on here. But now everyone, we got old and we got busy. That's essentially what it is. But I'll just let everyone know you can find me on social media. Patriot Defense is on Facebook. They're on Instagram. We do some TikToks. Eli will never see us on social media. He's a no social media guy over here. And you know what? I just finished up an ebook today.
Oh, really?
And I put I got an email a little while ago from Kindle on Amazon, and it is actually, you can get my ebook on Kindle now.
Oh, wow.
And it's called, I don't even remember what it's called now. It's Dry Fire and Other Simple Drills to Make You a Better Shooter, or something like that. And I'll probably on Monday, I'll post a link up on Facebook, on the social medias. You guys can check it out if you want. It's cheap. It's like $9, man. It's cheap. Dry fire is very important, something to do all winter long. You don't have to get out and freeze to death on the range. A lot of times people just put their guns away, and those skills will go away after a little while. Yeah. You got to use it, especially if you're going to use that gun to maybe, you're relying on that firearm to defend your life, right? You don't want to shoot this guy in the butt, just like we talked about. Because if I think about him shooting a guy and think about him shooting him in the butt, what does that tell me? That dude did not know his trigger press. He flinched like a son of a gun, right? He shot the guy in the butt.
That's how Marvin Gaye died, isn't it? I think it is.
Maybe. So I'll put that link up for that ebook, and I put together a newsletter, so that's going to be a new thing now. You guys don't only get to listen to me on social media or on the podcast, but I'm going to try to bother you with a newsletter every month. We'll see how long that lasts. It's a lot of work, and there's a lot of stuff. Well, I got a lot of reloading to do this winter. So you can also find us on Patreon. Check out Patreon. Support us there. It's like $5 a month if you want. That'd be absolutely fantastic. Share this with your family. Share this with your friends. Go out and shoot. Go out and train. Go out and buy a new gun.
Yeah.
I'm actually thinking about buying a new gun here real quick.
It's a good investment. That's how I look at it.
It is a good investment. And get out and vote, because we're like a few days away. And honestly, I'm feeling really good about all this. They keep saying, the red wave is coming. I hate that term, and I know you do too. But anything's better than what we got now. So get out there and vote. And that could determine whether or not ammo prices go up or stay down, or I don't know. Eggs aren't like $20 a dozen. So go exercise your right to vote, and everyone have a great week. Bye.